Hello friends, welcome to another video of English literature. Here we'll discuss Renaissance period, which is from 1500 to 1600. In this video I'll discuss introduction of this age, characteristic, Renaissance drama, famous dramatists, Renaissance poetry, famous poets, Renaissance prose and prose writers as well. So let's get begin by introduction of this period. After Anglo-Norman period, then begins the Renaissance age. This period is also known as Elizabethan period as well, or age of Shakespeare as well. And at that time there was rule of Queen Elizabeth. That's why it's also known as Elizabethan period and age of Shakespeare, because it was dominated by writings of Shakespeare, William Shakespeare. And Renaissance, the word Renaissance, which means rebirth, revival, so at that place there in middle ages you see a decline in literature, but in Renaissance there was rebirth, revival or redevelopment of literature, and people were inclined toward learning. They were curious men, they were curious to learn, and the men of that age are also known as Renaissance men, because they never get satisfied what they have, they want more and more. So these are characteristic of men of Renaissance, and Renaissance began in Italy with some important works of Dante, and especially in arts and architecture. And with the fall of Constantinople in 1453 AD by invasion of Turks, the Greek scholars who were residing there spread all over Europe, and revival of learning of Greek. And then the essence of this movement was the man discover himself, Renaissance men, yes, and the universe around him, and they were inclined towards learning. Literature prosper in this age, and discoveries takes place, and such as Columbus discovered America and Copernicus discovered solar system. Books were printed, printing press was there in England. Changes in religion and political when Henry VIII made himself Church of England. He cut all the contact with Catholic Church, and then Protestantism became more popular. So there are two sects or classes of Christianity: Catholics and Protestants. So the chief characteristic of Renaissance was its emphasis on humanism. Humanism means human values, and they value individual humans. Focus was on humanism, human. And Renaissance was started in Italy, and this movement focuses on proper study of mankind. The first Englishman who wrote under influence of Greek was Sir Thomas, written Utopia in Latin. And the second characteristic was discovery of external universe. Writers directed their gaze inward and become deeply interested in problems of human personality, and they prefer individuality. Individualism was there. And another characteristic was that men came to regard it as responsible for their own action. We'll discuss Elizabethan drama. In this period, the most memorable achievement in literature was in the field of drama, and the greatest dramatist William Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe. A great development was made in the study of Latin drama. English, they were translated, and practice of acting place in English, and these plays brought educated classes into touch with drama. And in 16th century, writers attempt to write plays in English on Latin models. For example, John Steele wrote grammar, curtains, needle. Elizabethan drama was dominated by university wits. University wits, basically a group of literary men, and Christopher Marlowe was also part of them, literary university wits, and they were the students of Cambridge. And Shakespeare was the greatest of all Elizabethan dramatists. He was also known as greatest dramatist in English literature as well. And famous dramatist Shakespeare, 1564 to 1616, and he just didn't have a proper education, but he made marvelous work or creative, imaginative writings, and get very famous, renowned in English literature. And beside non-dramatic poetry consists of two narrative poems, and he wrote 154 sonnets, and he wrote 37 dramas. and his works were divided into four periods. The first period from 1577 to 1593, and it was early period, and he wrote three parts of Henry VI and Titus Andronicus, and his first comedy is Love's Labour's Lost, Comedy of Errors, and his first tragedy Romeo and Juliet, very famous and amazing tragedy. And second period 1594 to 1600, in this period he wrote great comedies, chronicles like Richard II, King John's Henry IV, 1, 2nd, 4th. These are all separated different. And another important work is As You Like It, and third period 1601 to 1608, and in this period he wrote great tragedies and bitter comedies, and he wrote Julius Caesar, Hamlet, Macbeth, All Is Well That Ends Well, Othello, King Lear, Timon of Athens. So yes, you will discuss King Lear, which is part of your course. And fourth period from 1608 to 1612, in this period he wrote comedies, dramatic romances, and there was decline in power of expression and thought. And he wrote Cymbeline, Tempest, Winter's Tales, and the plays and poetry was like a great river of life and beauty. Christopher Marlowe, 1564 to 1593. In 1587, his first play, Tamburlaine, was produced and took public interest, and greatest and best play was Dr. Faustus, yes, where a tragedy by Christopher Marlowe, which you will study in your course, a tragic comedy. Not a tragic comedy, it's a tragedy. And story was about scholar Dr. Faustus, and you'll see how he was representative of Renaissance man. And other works of Marlowe include Edward II, which was his last play, and Marlowe was known as father of English dramatic poetry. Another important figure is Lyly, 1554 to 1606, and he wrote a number of plays, and most famous was Euphyscius, and best known are Compaspe and Endymion. Okay. And Elizabethan poetry took a new trend, and under the influence of Renaissance, the people of England were infused with freshness, enthusiasm, and vigor. And the poetry of this period opened with publication of a volume known as Total's Miscellany by Sir Thomas More and Earl of Surrey. Both attempted the blank verse, and then the rhyme scheme of most of the sonnet English included Shakespeare's sonnets. They follow this rhyme scheme: A B A B B C D C, and this like this. And this, so the words rhyme in every other line except final line known as couplet. And now famous poets include Philip Sidney, 1554 to 1586. The greatest of these early Elizabethan and was Sir Philip Sidney. He wrote a person, a scholar, courtier, and a poet. Queen Elizabeth called him one of the jewels of her crown, and he was considered one of the ripest statements of this age. And his prose works are Arcadia and the Apology for Poetry. And his greatest work in poetry was the consequence of sonnets called Astrophel and Satella. And his defense of poetry was also very famous. And then another important figure is Edmund Spenser, 1552 to 1599. The greatest name in Elizabethan poetry was Spenser, and he was called the poet of chivalry and medieval allegory. And his famous work is Fairy Queen, written in the form of allegory, deals with the petty intrigues, corrupt dealings, and clever manipulation of politicians and court of Queen Elizabeth. and hymns, elegies were written, and his amorety consists of 88 sonnets. His poetry is surcharged with noble ideas and lofty ideas, and there is no harsh note in his poetry, and he was poet of imagination. Greatest contribution to English poetry is the Spenserian stanza, and Charles Lamb called him Spenser is the poets. Okay, and now we'll see Elizabethan prose. This period was the period of origin of modern English prose. Prose, as you know, prose and poetry. Prose is means the common writing, whereas verse is the poetic writing. So prose was used as a vehicle of various forms of amusement and information. Books on history, travel, adventure, translation of Italian stories appear, and there was a large number of prose writers. Sidney, Lyly are famous, and people of England took delight in flowery verse and graceful. Elizabethans loved decorative models of expression and flowery style, and famous prose writers include John Lyly, and the first author who wrote prose in the manner that Elizabethan wanted. His Euphesius was popular on highly artificial and decorative style and read and copied by everyone, and the word euphemism became common description of artificial style. Another important figure is Sir Philip Sidney, and Arcadia is the first English example prose pastoral romance which imitated by various English authors, and the main attraction lies in its style, which is highly poetic and exhaustive, and one word is used again and again in different senses. So some references are A Critical History of English Literature by B.R. Malik. I'll provide you the notes and book link in the description. Thank you for watching.